Hi, and thanks so much for joining us at Ticor Title Tuesdays at 2. I'm Ryan Pulliam. I trust everybody had a nice, long, relaxing Labor Day weekend, and today it's a rather blustery day out in the Las Vegas Valley, so we're going to see if we are also going to be blown away by the numbers in August. And to discuss what happened in the Las Vegas Valley in August is a great friend of mine who I think the world of, and he's going to come on and share a little insight of what happened in the market. And that is Alex Adabashi, who is a realtor at Huntington and Ellis here in town. So, Alex, thanks so much for joining us at Ticor Title Tuesdays at 2.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So, Alex, before we kind of get into what happened in August, you have a unique background because you were actually an appraiser first before you became a realtor. So, can you explain kind of what drew you to that end of the business and what made you transition to getting your real estate license?
Yeah, cool. It's kind of an interesting story. So I went to high school, born and raised in Vegas, and I was working at an appraisal company while I was still in high school, taking pictures, running errands, random stuff. Everything was kind of feeling good. They offered me an internship spot, which you have to do to become an appraiser, and launched it from there. From 1998 to 2008, we ran one of the most successful appraisal offices in town. And unfortunately, in 2008, when the market just crashed, appraisals were not needed. The banks weren't refinancing. There was very few purchases going on. So all of that business that we had was literally gone overnight. So that created that transition for me. I went to run a large REO broker's office on the valuation side. We did appraisals on the foreclosure properties. We did those broker price opinions. I ran a huge team for this company. Back then, those REO agents had 300, sometimes 400 listings at one time. So it took a big machine to run it. And I learned the real estate side that way. In 2012, when the market kind of started transitioning out of that, I got my broker's license and started in traditional real estate. So that background helped me out, get where I'm at now, and just pushing forward.
I'm sure that gives you a lot of talking points. And speaking of talking points, Alex, if you and I were at a cocktail party, I mean, it seemed to me that the market has just continued on at a fevered pace. But if we were at a cocktail party, what would you say to me if I asked you, hey, what'd the market do last month? Just kind of an overall view.
So, good question. August continued at a high pace, and in a nutshell, if you look at just the numbers on that one, we had 4,192 homes go into escrow in August, which was a 400 property bump over the month before. So from July to August, we had 400 more properties go into escrow, which is huge based on how many homes we're selling a month.
Absolutely. And then, so that was kind of properties going into escrow. Also, what about closings? What did we see in the month of August, and how did that compare to July of 2020, and maybe looking back over a year of August 2019?
Yeah, so good question. Interesting, in August, there was 3,350 closings, which is actually a small drop below July. But that's not because of a lack of demand. There was just a serious inventory problem since the pandemic began. We're starting to ramp up with more listings, so therefore there's more properties available. So based on that, there was 3,350 closings in August. And in July, there was 3,700 closings, which lined up almost exactly with 1 year prior. So our numbers right now are literally right at the pre-pandemic numbers, lining up with last year as well.
And sometimes it amazes me that through all this we can still look at that and have a conversation much like we're just having right now, that we're actually at pre-pandemic levels. And we've seen over the past week or so, although there's been some fluctuation, the stock market, both S&P and the Dow, have both reached their pre-pandemic levels as well. So you kind of mentioned it about the demand. Supply and demand is obviously one of the fundamentals that deals with the industry. You talked about the closings, and then you kind of mentioned a little bit of the new listings that came on board. How many listings did come on board, and how did that kind of compare? Are we finally trying to increase inventory a little bit?
So we're trying. So in July of 2020, we had 4,700 new listings. In August of 2020, we had 4,850. So about 150 more listings came on in August than in July. And believe it or not, that actually runs into last year as well. August of 2019, we had just a little bit more inventory or new listings that hit the market last August. So we're creeping back up. We're trying to get there. Not there yet, but it looks like it's happening.
Now, do you kind of think that it might? We knew that the eviction moratorium was scheduled to end on August the 31st, and then September 1, you can go forward with eviction. The governor Sisolak has extended that another 45 days. Can you still, as a realtor in town, can you still not show tenant occupied properties?
That's correct. We still can't show the tenant occupied properties. And Ryan, I'm glad you brought that up because I personally, and this is a small scale, I have probably about 10 listings that are being held off the market. The property owners have tenants in there aware of the challenges and they're holding off until we can get past that step. Because what we've seen is a lot of listings that have tenants in there. They've been on the market for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months since March when all this started. And there's difficulty showing, there's difficulty selling, and I think that is going to add to our inventory to create more of a balance when we can actually show these tenant occupied properties.
It will be interesting because I know a lot of folks are relocating. We've had guests on recently that have talked about California's coming to town and
Yep.
spending money. Sometimes they buy property sight unseen, and they do they utilize technology with FaceTime and do the virtual and the 3D virtual tours. So there's that ability, but sometimes those tenant owned properties you can't even get in to take a look at them. So it will be really interesting to kind of see if that if and when that moratorium does end and people can start kind of filtering through those tenant occupied properties, what that does to inventory. And as inventory goes up again, we talk about supply and demand. As there's more supply, the demand may still be there, but it may depress prices a little bit. Robert Coomer from Cardinal Financial was on last week, and he discussed that the demand in the mortgage market is extremely high. And so that'll hopefully, transition, like you said, there's more properties going into escrow. But what did we see in terms of pricing for August, both in terms of median home price and average sales price?
So I've seen a couple different numbers on this, Ryan, but what I've done is I blended the single family condos and townhomes together to give you these numbers. And that's because the starter market is so important these days. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But so if you look at single families, condos, and townhomes, the median price in August of 2020 was 330,000, and the average is a lot higher. It's at 373, and that's a mix between Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, and Boulder City. And that's about a 9% jump over last year's numbers as well. So continued price appreciation, even through this challenges that we're having, is wild.
And so, and do you think that, because I would love to kind of get your take on it, because you do have that appraisal background and you probably understand some challenges that your former colleagues may be going through right now. But with your background and interest rates being so low right now, what do you think prices are going to do towards the end of the year? I know that nobody has a crystal ball, but I love getting everybody's take on maybe what could happen towards the end of the year. What are you kind of expecting prices to do through the end of the year?
So the real world on that is I expect prices to continue as they have over the past few months. And the reason is because some of the stops that you had in the past would prevent prices from going up, such as an appraisal coming in lower than the sales price. And we're still having that problem, but the difference is the buyers are paying the difference in cash more than I've ever seen. On my personal listings, I'm seeing it. Growing up as an appraiser, I still have a strong connection with all my appraisers in Las Vegas, and they're seeing it too. They're having a hard time getting to the number because of the demand, but they're saying, the lenders are telling them the buyers are paying cash difference. It's wild. So just based on that right there, those stops have kind of been pulled out, and I expect everything to continue on as it has been with the steady appreciation even through the spring of next year.
Now, are you seeing those instances where they make up the difference in cash? Is that more in the lower end of the market, or is that in the upper tiers of the market as well?
The lower end, not so much, but it's, I would say the 350 and up is very common. because those a lot of those homes, the buyers are seeing the value in it, and sometimes an appraisal can't really show the value that some of these properties have. And the buyers, whether they're local or coming from other states, are seeing the value. They're okay with putting in the money to make it happen.
Gotcha. So again, you deal with a wide array. You have a very diverse business, and I'd like to kind of just have you opine for a little bit. What are you really paying attention to towards the end of the year, and how are you gearing up for 2021? I mean, obviously 2020. I mean, if you think about it, after this month, we're going to be the fourth quarter of 2020 already. How are you gearing up for 2021 and beyond?
So I'm preparing for a very big rest of the quarter and a very big 2021 as far as production. Never before, like I've seen, have we had buyers calling and moving here and purchasing homes from random areas. I mean, California's always been strong. We know that. That's continuing. They know Las Vegas, but now we're seeing people moving here from Florida, from Manhattan. We've got buyers from Kentucky, from Ohio, from rural towns that no one's ever heard of, and they are making that move to Vegas. So, based on that, we've been working on a beautiful relocation guide online and in print that we can send to these clients to look through. We've already gotten feedback from several of them. They've been very happy to see that. It talks about schools, neighborhoods, different recreation, things like that, that it's important for them to know. So, that's been big. Also educating buyers and sellers that the market is moving. Even despite everything we talked about, people are still like, how can the real estate market be moving? And it is. So educating them on that. And also letting them know that if they do want to make a move, we can make it safe for them to do that. A lot of people are still fearful, and showing them that we have safety precautions in place to help avoid any issues has been big as well, in helping people make that move. Also, what we're doing is we're adding to staff, being prepared for this big bump in business, and looking for some qualified real estate agents to join our team and help with these influx of out-of-state buyers.
So,
So a lot going on. And it's exciting.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like some exciting stuff. So I just want to kind of just touch on you talked about folks coming in from all different areas. That's interesting because we do hear a lot about Californians coming across and calling Las Vegas home. But when you're dealing with people who are relocating or they're reaching out, inquiring about neighborhoods or properties here in the Valley, what's kind of the driving force behind that? Do you kind of see if there is there an overarching theme about when people want to move to Las Vegas or the Las Vegas Valley? Is it because of one or two specific reasons, or is it just a myriad of reasons?
I don't pay attention to a lot of the school systems in other states, but what I've been hearing from talking to the buyers is that they've been researching Las Vegas school systems and are very happy to see high rating numbers on the public schools. And that's been a huge driving force for many of these people. Also, there's employment opportunities. I've got clients, they work for large healthcare providers. They can work from home from any state. So that's been big, and they want to land somewhere where there's fun stuff to do. I mean, besides the strip, we all know there's awesome recreational things we can do, nature. We also have, of course, our sports team coming, and it's exciting to people. They want to live somewhere that's popping, that's has some fun stuff coming up, and also, the good weather. We get hot. We complain in the summer, but it's really nothing compared to a lot of these other areas that suffer with snow, humidity during the summer. So they're loving it, and Vegas is on the map.
I love it, man. Well, I know you're a great ambassador for our city. As somebody else who was born and raised here, I always love hearing you talk about Las Vegas because you speak about it with a passion that very few folks have. So I appreciate that, Alex.
Definitely, definitely. You
Absolutely.
too.
Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your time with us. I know it's valuable, and I appreciate everything you do for us, for your company, and also for the city of Las Vegas.
Yep, you too, Ryan. Thanks for Ticor Title and everything that you guys do for us to keep things running smoothly. I appreciate that.
Perfect. Well, it's our pleasure, and anything we can do, we'd love to help out. Also, want to thank our audience for tuning in this week. As always, I'd like to thank our producer, Rick Manning, down at Rigel Studios. We will be back next week, but until then, we'll continue to be the most resourceful people in town.